Going to move on to the main story of the day, which is yet another spy scandal in Parliament. Now, this time, a researcher who seems to have worked with or for or alongside a number of MPs with foreign policy interests has been arrested on suspicion of spying for Beijing. Now, Jason, can you take us through this? What do we actually know so far? Is it any more than that?
Well, we know that 2 people have been arrested for allegedly spying on behalf of the Chinese state. We know that one of them was working for this group of Tory MPs called the Chinese Research Group. In exactly what capacity he was working for, it's not clear. But he got very close to the security minister, Tom Tugendhat. Tugendhat insists this was, he hasn't had any contact with him since he became security minister. And to Alice Kearns, who replaced Tugendhat as the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Slightly embarrassing. Both of those were actually quite hawkish on China as well. Which, to be what in terms of they were doing in terms of the spying, we don't know at all, I'm afraid.
No, I mean, we tend to think in this country, don't we? I don't know if it's fed by the media or just generally the public's apathy, but we tend to think these sort of research groups and little groups of MPs talking about one particular thing in a corner somewhere is just an excuse for jollies or something, and it's really it's not exactly the heart of beating government. But that seems to be somewhere that obviously, if these allegations have got anything to them, that someone has felt there is a risk.
Yeah, this is incredibly it's slightly embarrassing for the Conservatives for a start. It's difficult for Sunak. The Foreign Secretary James Cleverly has come back from a visit to China. They don't quite know how to play this. Do they kind of some of the more hawkish members of the Tory party are saying we should cut all ties with China completely, forgetting it's the kind of the second biggest economy in the world and a producer of an awful lot of products, including TikTok, by the way, which video we just saw in the Dangerous Dogs, which we use and consume in Britain. So how far do we kind of withdraw from all cooperation or of trading links, etc., with a superpower, and how much do we have some sort of relationship and dialogue? I mean, the government just doesn't seem to know which way to play it. But under a lot of flack from their own right of the party, as I said, but they've also, they've got the kind of wider geopolitical question of who are our friends and allies in this post-Brexit world. I mean, this is a quite interesting bit. They went very heavily on how Sunak at the G20 summit in New Delhi, kind of confronted was the word which was briefed out the Chinese Premier Li Qiang about the unacceptable interference in British democracy. This is little Rishi standing tough on the world stage. You may get the impression, but actually, this is kind of being, how can I put this politely, inflated to disguise the fact that one, it's slightly embarrassing that we allow these kind of alleged spies in our midst in the first place, and two, that actually this G20 summit didn't go very well for Sunak. He was slightly sidelined.
Yes,
downgraded.
It wasn't all particularly brilliant, and never mind, there wasn't an awful lot of headlines back home, but I mean, there's not an awful lot to say at the end of it. Now, get into the comments, everybody. What do you think about Chinese spies in the heart of Westminster? Do you think it matters if someone's talking to Tom Tugendhat about his opinion? He's busy telling everybody else. Mike says, I'm sure there was an aide who was a suspected Chinese spy months ago. Is it the same one or is it another? Who knows? Like, because I can recall, right, it must have been 20 years ago now, a Lib Dem MP getting having troubles because of getting sidled up to by some beautiful Russian young lady, and I can't remember her name now, but she got a nickname, didn't she? The Scarlet or the Red Under the Bed or something like that.
I'm so sad. I can remember the name of the MP, which was Mike Hancock down in Portsmouth. I can't remember her name. There you go.
Well, she's a famous celebrity in Russia now. She went back home and Putin sort of gave her the Medal of Honor or whatever. But this does seem to be something that happens with alarming regularity in Parliament, really. Why is that, Jason? Why are they not capable of working out that if someone wants to come up to them and says, "Oh, I've done some work in China, why don't I help do your research for you?" Why don't they compute that maybe it's not all above board?
Yeah, I mean, there are questions to be asked about the vetting service for parliamentary passes. I mean, it's the MPs can kind of nominate people to have passes. It can be anything from I noticed the other day from your chauffeur, if you're a particularly rich peer, to somebody to run your office, to being a humble researcher. So that seems kind of a little bit lax to me. They're meant to be properly vetted. I know when I apply for a pass, you have to give them an awful lot of details, and they take a long time going through it. But that's one area. So there's this kind of is this the system actually working? That we have uncovered these people, and that's actually a good thing, or are there a lot more out there we don't know about? And
there's also, it's the fact that when you start out, perhaps one of these sort of researchers on the sidelines of things, talking to the all-party parliamentary group on roundabouts or whatever, that you get alongside somebody, that you start impressing them with your knowledge, and then if that person later on becomes a minister, suddenly you're a special advisor. Suddenly you have security clearance. Suddenly you have, a lot more access than you might have done at the start, which is perhaps where some of the allegations seem to focus at the moment. Now, when the Prime Minister was tackled about this on the plane on the way back from the G20, because there was nothing else to ask him about, and he'd said that he had expressed concerns to the Chinese delegation when he met them. He said, and I quote, "There is no point carping from the sidelines. I'd rather be in there directly expressing my concerns." And that's what I did. They'll be quaking in their boots, won't they, Jason?
Yes, I think that kind of, being told off by Rishi, that's kind of like
I know, expressing. I know he's a very, polite spreadsheet kind of man, but I mean, if your spin doctor's putting out that you confronted them, then say that you've confronted them. Don't say, "Oh, I expressed some mild concerns," and then we just moved on to talk about the other stuff. Come on, that's not the way to do it. And what do you think, everybody? What should Rishi do about this? What should Parliament do about this? Obviously, they need a lot more tougher security than they've got at the moment, but does it matter? It's surely Britain has spies in China. Surely, unless we've cut those back as well. We must be doing the same thing elsewhere, one would have thought. Now, so far, nobody's been arrested or charged. All we know at the moment is one possible name, which has been reported by the Times, and two men, one in his 20s, one in his 30s, have been arrested under the Official Secrets Act earlier this year. Might have been a few months ago. It might be one that Mike was referring to earlier. Now, there's some suggestion also that he was trying to date political journalists on the Westminster scene. Now, Jason, when you worked in the lobby, were you a target for honeytraps, do you think? Were you aware of this sort of thing happening?
Sadly not, Susie.
Mike Hancock got all the business, did he?
Yeah, I can't recall. And I mean, maybe somebody did, and I was too ignorant or too kind of unworldly to realise.
Well, I think perhaps part of the problem is that political journalists, you're used to people schmoozing up to you and trying to tell you something that makes them look good and the other guy look bad, and it's everyone is in it for a reason, aren't they? Usually in Westminster, and if someone comes along and starts talking about something and they don't appear to be in it for a reason, you go, "Oh, a friend."
Have you ever met a spy, Susie?
Not that I'm aware of. I do know there has long been rumours that there's supposed to be one in every newsroom, and I did know who it was supposed to be when I was at the Mail, and I've never really had any evidence that it was him. But I've always kept his name at the back of my head.
Yeah, I got invited to a briefing with somebody from MI6.
Ooh,
and it was a couple of years ago. And so I went along and talked to this guy, and he was very pleasant and very charming. And and he said, he gave me his number, and he said, if you've got any questions and you want to ask me, just on background, please do. And I went, "Oh, that's very nice." And I went away again. And I can't remember his name. And that's what the skill of being a spy was. I suddenly realised that they're kind of both there and anonymous at the same time. It was very impressive.
That's what they always say every time there's a new Bond film comes out. A real spy is not the person who walks in the room in a dinner jacket and does this. It's someone who is totally forgettable.
Yes.
You do not know who they are, and they don't stand out from a crowd in any way, shape, or form.
No, I thought this was. I suddenly realised that and I scroll through my list of contacts sometimes trying to find it, and it just doesn't ring a bell.
There's no name.
Such a good job, but
John Boring, his name. Why was he inviting you to a briefing? How did that happen? What was it about? Can't say. Stacey.
I work for the Mirror. I may be of use, I suppose, but obviously I'm not, because I can't remember my name.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you do think, if you're going to a particular country or a particular hotspot, or you're speaking to someone in particular in another government, that maybe people are going to take an interest. No one's rang me yet. But anyhow, maybe I'm not boring enough to be of interest to them. Now, we'll have to see, won't we, what Rishi Sunak's going to do about all this. But of course, in the meantime, he does seem to have invited China to, or someone has, he's let them be invited to an AI summit. When seeing as China uses AI to oppress its people, inviting them to Britain to talk about how they do AI even better is a bit suspect. So he's going to have a row about that. And that's probably going to build this week. There's going to be more stuff about the spy, and there's going to be more stuff about the official government reaction to this kind of stuff. And we said, I think it was last week or the week before, I think RAC was a story on an inside page in the paper. And I said on Monday, that is going to be the big story by the end of the week. And look what happened. Schools were shut by the end of the week.
I think that is the biggest problem for the Tories, that this kind of, the spies in the heart of Westminster, it feeds into this narrative of kind of everything on this government's watch is going wrong.
Yeah.
We've got terrorist suspects walking out of prisons. We've got schools literally crumbling before our eyes, and now we've got infiltrators at the heart of our democratic system. And it's this kind of culmination of stories, which it's just, you go, this government is now fated. Even if it did something well, or it would still manage to come out with a kind of negative headline.
Yeah,
because that perception, which is kind of now so kind of hardwired into the national narrative.
Well, I'll give you an example. On the road between my house and the school, there is a drain cover, and there was a massive pothole there right next to the drain, and it was a killer because you went in the pothole and then smacked the edge of the drain. And it was there for ages and ages, got bigger and bigger. Some do-gooder came out and put a traffic cone in it, so people started going around it rather than ripping their tyres off. But 2 or 3 cars would get done every day. And they came along and they patched it. And you know what kind of state that's in now? It's back. The pothole's back because they just bodged it.
You need Rod Stewart to help you out.
Well, Rod Stewart wasn't available. He doesn't live in Kent. I think he's sorry. But it's just got worse again. So even when they do spend money to try and fix something, they're fixing it so badly that the problem just continues and it returns. What you need to do is resurface the poxy road and put a flipping curb in down there. Anyway, if you're listening, Kent County Council, there you go. Right, thank you for that, Jason. We are going to move on to some good news. But first off, if we can just bring back, if the backstage person can just bring up that picture of the Prime Minister's story again, because there is a fantastic picture above the issue of Rishi Sunak not dealing with the Chinese issue. There you've got a photograph of our Prime Minister worshipping in a non-Christian temple, and it's page 15. It doesn't matter, right? It's a nice picture, and that's it. And I don't think you'd have quite the same treatment if it was a Muslim piece of worship. But as it is, a Hindu prime minister in a Hindu temple, and he's representing Britain, no one minds. Nobody minds. And I think that's quite marvellous. One good thing that seems to have come out of G20 anyway.